today's trail. I just want you to see it from my vantage point, kind of what I got to go through to get through this hike. Rashad Sportstechwest back at it again. So really enjoying these HikingIQ sessions, and it made me think about something that I kind of have been wanting to talk about for a while. I'm not really the social media type per se, but I know that getting these PSAs out there in regards to kind of how you think about things sometimes is important, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you starting your own brand, or you starting your own company. So the one thing I realized is that, I call this HikingIQ, right? So we created a couple different IQ scores, and there's been a misnomer that I feel like is starting to be debunked by the community. I think that's the right way to say it. Starting to become debunked. I don't know, but that's the C-level student. The C-level student coming out of me. A bug just hit my ear. Also having to watch out for snakes. I've seen like copperheads out here before. So if you see me kind of move my head in a certain direction, I'm just making sure that I'm good out here. But I say that to say also foxes, coyotes, all type of things. So I got to keep my head on the swivel to a degree. But the one thing that I realized is that athletes have had, whether it's a thing that people should recognize it, because I know that every stereotype has some type of truth. But with athletes, for some reason, that dumb jock situation stuck. And I think it's still in a lot of people's subconscious. I think it's starting to change. But at one point, you would hear people say, oh, he got a scholarship to play a sport, X sport. Normally basketball, football are the ones that get this stereotype more than others. But they'll say, oh, he played this sport and he's smart, right? Or because he's going to Ivy League, or whatever it may be, or he's going to a top 10 university, he's going to Michigan, or he's going to UNC. So it's interesting, or Duke. It's interesting because that's part of the reason why I think Marshawn Lynch, Kendrick Perkins, Allen Iverson, giving them a stage to talk and really being able to show that these human beings are actually smart, whether it be in the subject matter they're most knowledgeable in, which is more than likely sports, right? Because you played that your whole life since you was a little kid. It would be like telling a financier like Warren Buffett, who started when he was 7 years old, that he's not smart. He's not smart just because he's not getting other people to recognize him as smart, right? That doesn't make any sense. If he made it to the highest level of what he does, you should recognize that person as smart, even if it's just in that subject matter, football, basketball, whatever. But I think we got to take it beyond that, right? These kids, they were young kids that made a lot of money, and they may have lost some of that money just like anybody else that was 18, 19, 20. Look at the Hollywood actors. So I think we have to change this misnomer of thinking that athletes are not smart. I think a lot of them spend the majority of their time focusing in on their craft and then doing other things to get away from it. So that kind of gets to my topic today, which is mental health. So I know it took me a long time to get to it. So I think mental health is an important topic when it comes to athletes, because I think it goes across the board and reaches other people as well. And that's why, to my point of my little ramble there, And of course, I do this for multiple reasons. It's Hiking IQ episodes, but mostly because I can do it and I'm in nature. I'm with God. I can think clearly, and I can get these thoughts out that I have on a consistent basis. So, thought I saw a snake. So the thing that I want to talk about is athletes really do put everything into their craft. If they play at a high level, even if you don't think it, right? You're like, oh, he may work hard, or he doesn't work as hard as Kobe, or he doesn't work as hard. In their mind, it might be because of something else. And I think that's where we're getting lost, right? You're like, oh, he has work ethic, but he doesn't. He has all the talent, but no work ethic. But we don't ask ourselves, why is that, right? And I noticed, and I've seen it from my own vantage point, that everybody's motivated differently. And sometimes that motivation is within. Sometimes it takes something without for them to discover that motivation within. And I'm not giving them any, I'm not saying that any of them are, let's say, I'm not saying to take accountability from them. I'm just saying that I think that we need to have more responsibility in regards to some of this tech we're creating, especially for the mental health of athletes, to figure out what's going on, to figure out if it's a motivational issue, to figure out if it's having to bounce from place to place, to figure out if it's, the same thing as everyone else, the same issues. I don't think that money, and of course I haven't made that type of money, but I don't think money solves mental health. And we've seen that with multiple players coming out and talking about what they're going through in regards to mental health. You got to excuse my my hoodie. It tore while I was out here in the but yeah, so I think as we see more players come out, we just saw Michael Beasley break down, which was hard for me to watch, because I know, and then you have other individuals, right? Kevin Love was one of the people that came out, and he's a UCLA guy. So the whole thought process of, the dumb jock, even though people don't say it anymore, I think they still look at it from that perspective, and they try to take advantage of these individuals. They know that they're young, they know that they're impressionable, they know that they just want to, they prey on them, and they have game. So a lot of these individuals have game. So they watch exactly what the kid likes to do. They talk to their parents, they talk to their friends, and then by that time, and that's what's so dangerous about this NIL and protecting the mental health of these younger kids, because then you don't know who to trust. Because now you have multiple adults that understand and know how to run game, and they're running game on you. And nobody has gave you the game if you don't have a father in your life. You need dads in these players' lives, whether it be, and it could be potentially a coach, because I know we just live in a society to where there's not a ton of male figures. But I think that comes from the male and female standpoint. Now we could get a little deep, because females don't really have to have game, and I'm not talking down on them, but normally men come to them. So men have to be resourceful, figure out, what they like, dislike, figure out how they, how to interact with them, what they like to be said. So it's a lot more. Sometimes they can recognize game. Sometimes they may even have a little bit of game just so that they can recognize it, right? But it's not something that they have to develop. So it's a lot harder for women sometimes to understand and recognize game. And I think that's what we're seeing in the NIL agency space, financial advisor space, Because a lot of people are like, how could he lose all of that money? He got gamed. So, and then the mental health of these athletes, you know, you have all the people around you that you thought that you trusted. And the next thing you know, everything is gone. People are talking about you as if, you know, you were dumb and your money is gone and now you're in a tough financial situation. You might be going through a breakup, whatever. Like, you have so many things and all you want to do is focus on your craft. So you have to hear all this noise going on, different things, and you want to do what you love and have fun doing what you love. I think more athletes need to speak out and really talk about this with their podcast. I think it's probably the most necessary thing for them to do at this current moment. Because once we get it to where their mental health is intact and they're able to be who they are, because you don't have to be the smartest. You don't even have to be the most gifted. All you have to be is you. And that's one thing that I'm realizing more and more is that mental health is more of an imbalance. There's something, I feel like I'm in a different place. There's something that is not as balanced as it should be in regards to how you're thinking, in regards to, you know, because your internal reflects your external. So if everything internal is going well, and then it will reflect in your outside world. So that's the one thing that I would love to see, and I advocate. I'm a player data equity advocate. So I'm always trying to figure out how to improve athletes' lives. Player performance is just a start. And that's why the play on words, HikingIQ, ball code IQ, highlight IQ, we're coming with some true intelligence from a player standpoint. Then I would love to get, if anybody actually is a mental health advocate, I would love to talk about how we can improve on the mental side of this, right? I think that there needs to be, and it doesn't necessarily have to be all off court. I think the on court mental health, to where, you know, just dealing with coworkers, dealing with staff, dealing with, you're consistently being judged, dealing with that, consistently having scrutiny, consistently thinking about potentially being cut if you're not a rotational guy. You're always on pins and needles for the most part. Now, of course, again, I can't talk for superstar status because I've never really been there. But I know it takes a certain amount of knowledge and understanding from others to really realize, like, Kawhi Leonard could still go. They were just talking about all of his injuries. He can't stay healthy, all of this and that. But he could still go. And it's not his fault that he's getting injured, right? Sometimes you have to, of course, okay, you can't take all the accountability away from him, right? Maybe it's in the preparation, maybe whatever it is. But hopefully, you know, digital twins, advancement in health technology, we can start to figure out what's wrong with these players so they don't have to try to figure it out. And that's what I'm talking to. I'm saying we have too much technology out here to consistently blame the athletes and not figure out solutions to some of these issues. And the main issue, again, is mental health, in my opinion. I think everything kind of starts from the mental. If we can get the baseline mental health conversation started to where the solutions are correcting the problem, I think we're on the way to really building a successful society. Because I think everybody goes through some of the same similar things, and the scrutiny a lot of times isn't even real. You know, you're thinking, sometimes I've talked to multiple people especially, and we're thinking just because of what we've been through in the past that it's like you see something on the internet and let's say it's bad, right? So you automatically say whatever that is bad. Let's say it's something that's let's just say it's a gender. Let's say woman bad, right? A kid is like woman bad. He saw Andrew Tate. He's like, yeah, women are bad, right? And then he goes out into the real world because he doesn't know. He's impressionable, right? He's 16, 17 years old. He thinks every woman is bad because the way Andrew Tate talked about their nature, not even necessarily understanding that he was just talking that, some of them have these qualities, some of them have that quality, or he might have just been talking about a certain situation or circumstance. But he goes out in the world and he thinks that every woman is bad. That's the same thing that we have going on in our minds to a degree, especially as athletes. Every coach, specifically growing up, at a high level, normally they're giving you constructive criticism. There isn't a bunch of praise. So you have to think about it to where every time they see someone, and maybe it might even be like the person just looking at them in a certain way, that they think that they're scrutinizing them or they're evaluating them or whatever it is. So it takes time for an athlete to really recognize and really grow into their potential and understanding of kind of how to navigate that space. So I know that we all are like, oh yeah, they make a ton of money. They should be good, but some don't. There's some players that are still trying to get on. Some players that are still, and that's the majority, right? That are still working to get to that high level. Now that Division I is pro, that kind of changes things to a degree. But that's still only 4 years. So that comes with another concern. That's only 4 years of money. Some people can kind of stretch it out, but for the most part, that's like 4 years. So we have to really think about how that's going to play on, the youth's mental health as well. And then last but not least, I definitely wanted to mention this just because it came to my mind, is we need to think about AI and how that's going to be affecting the mental health of individuals and how they're using it. I've seen some people using it in all kinds of ways, but I think that AI is something that we have to, especially companies, we have to try to hold them accountable. And this is something I'm going to talk about in my next episode. I'm not going to spend too much time on it here, but when you think about explainable AI, that's where we need to go into. It needs to be transparent. Another spider web. It needs to be transparent, and we need to make sure that it's responsible. So they're not just trying to come up with the best solution so they can get money, because 50% of the venture capital money is going into AI right now. So everyone just wants to get in the game, and they're not thinking about any repercussions of what they're creating or building. And that's dangerous. And everybody needs to be on guard. I think the EU is the only one that really took on a huge AI policy. And I think we need to put other countries, or we need to put some safeguards in place. Regardless of what it is, there needs to be more safeguards. But this is another one, baby. And I enjoyed it. Keep enjoying the journey. Nothing but success and love. Peace.